Buttons have been pushed. And it's Saturday night. This is episode 4.6, Global Issues, Local Solutions. I'm Random, here with Dutch. It is the last day of January 31, 2015. Tomorrow is the Super Bowl. Yay!
Who's my excitement?
Who's playing? Seattle's playing, right? I've been hearing a lot of Seattle. People talk about Seattle.
Seattle and New England.
Oh, New England's right, yeah, with the deflated footballs. Yeah. Well, hopefully the teams will sport really well and they'll make scores on however they do that. I'm a big fan. Go team. Go sport.
Who are you, George Carlin?
I'm trying to be enthused.
I mean, this is somebody who suffered a Florida.
Oh, sorry, Linda.
Suffered the season of the Gators
football. And now you're trying to pretend that you don't know what the game's about. But okay, we'll go with that.
The internet, I think, is a little bit slow tonight because I'm pushing the buttons and it's responding very slowly, but I'm trying to just push it one time.
That's therapy.
So that's making progress. Okay, so I'm Random Access. You're here with Random Thoughts with Random Access, Random and Dutch. We have our Facebook page, 26 likes. We've been stuck on there since we started the page. First day we had it, I think we had 24, and then it was over 20 the first day, and then like 2 days later, it was 26 or something, and then it's stayed.
Hi, Mom.
We're finishing week 5. This is our 35th episode. And that's every night, and that may not continue much longer. Or if there isn't every night, some nights might be 5 minutes long. Just literally at check-in, just to prove that I'm alive at least. And that might be recorded earlier in the day and not at 10 o'clock. But we'll see. It's not that we don't mind being here. We like being here. But maybe it's time to start figure out exactly how I want to do it. And that's a good thing. So lots to talk about today, believe it or not. But anyway, tomorrow's a big day. We already mentioned that, but it's a big day for 2 reasons. One is the Super Bowl. Tomorrow's another big day. Tell us, Dutch, why is tomorrow a big day?
Why is tomorrow's? Actually, my Uncle Steve's birthday is tomorrow, and because we have the same birthday, so I will be turning somewhere around 40-ish. No, I'll actually be 44, but I feel younger, and 44 is not bad. It goes with Reggie Jackson, so yeah, I'll go with that.
There you go.
Okay, I think okay, we're back. I pushed the microphone. I thought I pushed it. I must have missed it, and so we're waiting. Like, don't push it too fast. Don't push it too fast. Give it a few seconds, and then gamble. Push the button. Okay. All right, we're back. Okay. Well, happy birthday to Dutch. That's for tomorrow. Get that out of the way early. We'll probably remember it again tomorrow, and then maybe the day after. Could make a whole birthday weekend out of it.
Oh my
God. All right. So, global issues, local solutions. This is actually kind of makes me think of science too, because there's been these revolutions. Everything makes me think of great revolutions in science, where there's global issues with the scientific theory. Just things aren't quite right, and it starts causing more and more issues, and then you start putting band-aid solutions on it. So with Copernicus and the heliocentric model for the solar system, the planets going around the sun. They weren't quite sure how that worked. They started thinking they were on the right track because they used to think that everything went around the Earth. Then they started thinking, oh, maybe it goes around the sun. But even then, they weren't sure how exactly it worked because they didn't know that the orbits were elliptical. They figured they were maybe circular, but maybe they didn't really know. And they had a lot of things. There were a lot of problems. That was an example, though, of it was a step also of rebuilding from the ground up, where they said, okay, we're going to abandon the whole Earth-centered thing, and we're going to go to a sun-centered thing. But that still didn't quite solve all their problems. There was a big shakeup, and there was they had a kind of a local solution. When I think of a local solution too, I think of like a ground-up solution. I was like, I'm not going to try and fix your problems. We're going to fix our problems here, and then we'll see how. So that's kind of a local solution. It's kind of a ground-up solution, a grassroots solution or something. But Copernicus came to this, and okay, we're gonna have the Earth-centered, sun-centered model, and that solved a lot of problems. But it also created more problems, different problems, and eventually Newton solved the problem. And he not only solved that problem, he revolutionized everything about the scientific world. I mean, basically, Newton essentially invented science. He invented calculus. He invented just a whole different way of thinking about the universe, and sort of thinking about it mathematically in some sense, and then building it up from there. And so it was a revolution. So it was a local solution. He figured it out himself. To solve some problems that he was dealing with, but he had to scrap everything, basically start over from scratch, and boom. So scientists do that periodically. Scientists tend to think about things a lot differently because of that. I mean, that's just an example. But they just ask different questions. I talk about this a lot. Science likes to ask questions. And then the idea of an experiment is it's asking a question, and then the result of that experiment kind of illuminates the answer. The universe knows what it's doing. It just does what it does. And science is trying to figure out, what is the universe doing here? How is gravity working? Or it could be anything. But because of that, scientists look at things differently, especially scientific things. And Richard Feynman is the one that said that, I think a scientist can be just as dumb as the next guy when they're dealing with subjects outside of science. But when you deal with science, especially, scientists think about science differently. They're just a science-minded thing, and they have a different opinion. And because of that, it's also this it reminds me of people judge us by our actions, but we judge ourselves by our intentions. So when they have science-type questions, and you ask the general public, and you ask scientists tend to answer those questions with the intention in mind, or the theoretically, here's an example here. Is it safe to eat genetically modified foods? Mm-hmm. But when you ask a scientist, they're thinking just in, kind of in the scientific sense, are genetically modified foods safe to eat? And yes, because that's kind of the intention part. Where the people, their answers tend to be more along the lines of like the action, or like, because they start thinking about what could go wrong with it.
Judgmental.
And yeah, it's like, I don't know, genetically modified food sounds very dangerous to me, so they're against it. But but it's almost like they're answering two different questions. It's like, the scientists are answering kind of the theoretical question, and then the general public sort of answers what their perception of reality is. The Frankenfood or something. And this is Pew Research does a lot of great Pew Research does a lot of great polls, stuff like that, surveys. And here's one. They did a bunch of them. This is just a snapshot of one of them. And they have their website is pewinternet.org. Easy to find. You want to find Pew Research on the internet, pewinternet.org. And this is their science. That they ask some questions, and this is a lot of science-related type questions, but they show the difference between what scientists in America, how they respond, versus how the general public in the U.S. respond. Things like 37% of U.S. adults think genetically food is okay. Scientists like 88%. Use of animals in research. Again, they start imagining how animals could be used, but it's a lot of it's your perception. It's a judgment. Maybe you've seen a couple of videos, but maybe you don't realize how many animals really are used, and you don't know exactly how animals are generally used. So scientists like 89% are okay with using animals because they know how animals generally are used, and it's usually not a bad thing. So you get these different perceptions. One is sort of on intention, one is on action, and we do that. We judge ourselves by our intention. So any field, any expert, if you ask a question about their field, they're going to give you this sort of, I don't know, technical answer or like artificial viewpoint kind of thing. But it's kind of an intention thing. But where if you ask somebody outside the field, it's going to be more of a perception, and that perception is going to be based on media reports, just kind of what they heard. It's a little bit different response. I mean, there's just a big difference here. This blue bar here, I don't know how visible it is in the screen, but that represents the difference between the general public and the scientists. So when the blue bar is big, there's a big difference, and when the blue bar is small, it's a small difference. And generally, the scientists are, at least the way these questions are asked, are much more in favor of a lot of things. The one that was that at least on the page that shows a reversal, the very last one that fits on the page here is: do you favor more offshore drilling? Yeah, fewer scientists do. I mean, by 32% versus 52%. Scientists aren't real big on offshore drilling, I guess. But is that based in? I mean, who knows what the real reason is? But there's I don't know. Just I thought it was an interesting thing.
But that's also that's an opinion.
It's an opinion, but there's maybe this is across all scientists too. So it's not just drilling scientists or just climate scientists. So this could be like anybody with
right. And that's what I'm saying is that it's an emotion. It's right. Emotional based, where science is based off of facts, factual content. In which case, like for instance, is it safe to eat genetically modified foods? The answer is yes. It's not. Do we like them? No. Do we vote for that to happen? No. There's no emotion into it.
Right.
It's just a fact that yes, they're safe for the most part, 88%. Whereas that question, do you favor more offshore drilling? Now you've got an opinion involved.
Yeah.
What I mean? It's the other questions don't have the opinion in it.
Well, it's an opinion, but they also might be, maybe they're more aware of the environmental damage that offshore drilling really does.
I guess.
Yeah. But it's there's definitely differences. Sometimes it's interesting to find out, is it really a difference though because of scientists versus people, or is it that these questions have such variability in them that if I took another group of like some other random group of people, it might have a much different percentage. That's but it's not because they're just scientists versus people. It's just that this question is a very volatile question, and so that any little random groups of people are going to be very volatile compared to So it depends on how variable the answers are here, what the sort of distribution of answers looks like.
And it's also knowledge.
Yeah,
knowledge based. Yeah. I mean. I personally don't know what all goes into processed food and everything. I don't eat I try not to eat a lot of it, but they know for a fact whether or not that it's going to be harmful.
Right. Or you try not to be aware that you're eating it too. That's another thing, right?
Yeah, exactly.
With labeling laws, who knows what? Sometimes you don't know what you're eating.
Go to McDonald's. Guess what? You don't want to know what you're eating.
Right.
You really don't. And suppose if I said the filler that they're allowed to be able to put into their food, if I mention those fillers, most people are going to say, no, I'll not eat that ever again. But science can literally say that you're not going to die.
Right. Well, you've been doing it forever anyway.
You've already been eating it.
Why are you suddenly worried about it?
So, hey, no matter how sick it may make you feel, you're going to be okay.
Yeah. But yeah, okay. But this is just sort of setting up things differently sometimes, and maybe some of these are indications that scientists are thinking about differently. But there could be this underlying thing that there's enough variability in the responses that breaking it down by one group, just scientists versus adults. Like I would like to see like lots of other breakdowns, not just scientists, but like I don't know, mill workers or teachers or postal workers, some other breakdown, and see if those are all clustered around U.S. adults, or are they all over the place too? Because if everybody's group is all over the place, then there's very little information in this. So be really careful with statistics. But anyway, be that as it may. But sometimes there's just problem with systems, and we start seeing them after a while. If you put enough Band-Aid fixes on systems, they just end up going. You can't keep up with them, and you have to scrap the whole system probably. One of the things that I'm seeing more and more of in the news is these privatization of criminal justice. It can be from private prisons to private debt collection for as in this case, for fines. There's other things like you get on probation, and then there's your probation is managed by a private company, and now your court costs are not being paid to the state, to the local municipality, but your court costs and fees and stuff go through a private company, and then they now get extra law leverage over you. You will go to jail for not for owing debts and stuff like that. And this is an example of in Georgia, this guy, he was about $1,000 in traffic fines. Now, I don't know what the story of this traffic fines are, and I really don't care. But the guy ended up spending 5 days in jail because he owed some money on some traffic fines. He just came and got him and put him in jail. And when you spend 5 days in jail, a lot of people, your job, you lost it. There's a lot of people in America, especially if you can't afford $800 in traffic fines, you might have a job where you can lose your job. And then you lose your job, you might lose your house. He's got a small child here in this picture. You could end up losing custody of your kids because you're no longer a fit parent. And then the whole thing starts spiraling out of control over, because you owed some money and you couldn't make proper arrangements in time to get them paid. And I don't know what the full story is here. And maybe in this one particular case that maybe this is overblown, but this is a symptom of a much bigger problem, and this is these for-profit companies taking over criminal justice. Not everything is a business. Not everything has to be run like a business. It has to show a profit at the end of the year, it's so that this is a symptom of a big. And you can try and fix this little problem with however you want to do it, but it's just another one of the system spinning out of control, and it's not. By no means is this the only case, because here's another one, and then I'll let Dutch holler in after this. But this. Down in Florida, they've been having these cases of people feeding the homeless in parks, and the local authorities don't like that. Okay, and there might be some reasons for it, like sanitary preparation of food for distribution to the public or something. Health concerns. We can't just have people serving food that we don't know anything about to homeless people because they might all get sick and die. There's like this. That's at least that's the argument. That's the pretext, right, for these laws. That's the reason they give, the excuse they give. Whether that's the real context, I don't know, but it's certainly the reason they give. But But the idea is, there's this group called Food Not Bombs, and they're suing the Fort Lauderdale for over this law. There was the one case it was the guy who was I think he was about 90 years old. He was I don't know if he was certainly in his 80s, but I think he was 90, and he was arrested 3 times last year feeding the homeless people. And the mayor finally said, that's enough.
He's a reverend.
Yeah, but the mayor was like, that's enough. He told the police to stop arresting this guy because I'm sick of it being on the national news. Every time you arrest them, he's just feeding homeless people. So we got to work out some other way to deal with this. And one of the things that we could do, the police could help with the serving of the food. Hey, the amount that would cost would be much less than the cost of having to process this guy and deal with having to put him in prison and hold him in jails, whatever. But it's I'll throw it over to you now, Dutch, because I'm can only take so much.
Well, you can sit back and relax for a little while. This is the most ridiculous thing I've read in a long, long time. The man, he's a reverend or a pastor or whatever you want to call it. He's a clergyman of a church, and he is helping the homeless. He's giving them food. And Florida, now I've lived in Florida, okay? Florida has a lot of these different types of laws and citations and everything like that are extremely, number one, prejudicial, judgmental, definitely over the top. I mean, and that's been my experience. I lived there for over 6 years. So, but the thing is that let's even forget about the other laws that are out there. How in the world can it be against the law to help another human being? I'm not asking you I'm not saying that they should panhandle. I'm not saying that they should be able to ask you for money or anything like that. I know that there are people out there that are against that and so forth. And I've been there. I've been to where a quarter would have helped my situation greatly for that day. Um, so, but I understood if somebody said no or no thank you or whatever the case may be. Some people were nice. Some people weren't so nice, and um, you know, this is one thing for me is like it all comes down to one thing. We're all the human race. It doesn't matter what your job is. It doesn't matter the color of your skin. It doesn't matter what family you came from. It doesn't even matter what nationality you came from. We're all human here. And the thing is that if somebody is sitting there trying to help out other human beings with food, it's mind baffling to me how that can be a bad thing. And then they say, well, we don't know, the preparation laws and the conditions and everything. Well, you didn't have a problem with them serving the same food in the church. So is everybody coming out of the church? Are they coming out sick or something? Do we have is there some sort of backlog that says that there's some food poisoning or something? I mean, I've had that happen. I've gone to a homeless shelter. I actually remember volunteering in a homeless shelter, and they had carbonara, and I ate it, and it was a mistake, and I paid for it. I had food poisoning for 24 hours, and it was, But is there any of that? Is there any mention of that? It's like I said, didn't have a problem with them serving it in the church. So why are we having a problem with them serving it outside of the church? Are we now saying, well, because of the heat in Florida that might taint the food or whatever the case may be? I don't know, but be more clear about it. Don't just sit there and say, well, no, you can't serve food, because now you're only making yourselves look ridiculous. And anybody would sit there and they would read and there's been a number of articles about this situation over the past 6 months, and anybody who reads it wouldn't believe it. They would sit there and they would say, there's no way that this is a problem. You know what I mean? And but it is a problem. It is happening, and that's just, to me, is baffling.
One of the great things to recognize or to accept is that, okay, if we just let people serve food willy-nilly, that yes, there is this chance that there's going to be some tainted food and some people are going to get sick. But you have to ask, is the problem that we're solving, can we do more to get rid of that than the risk that we introduce for a little bit of unsafe food? If people living in your town, homeless people, hungry, cold, wet, sick in a lot of cases because they're not eating healthy food, at risk for committing all kinds of crimes too. A comfortable, well-fed person is less likely to go out and commit crimes than a cold, hungry person who needs to survive. So by addressing this and letting them give the food, that drives some of this problem down here. It introduces a little bit of risk here. At some point, the risk trade-off might be worth saying, okay, we've pretty much eliminated the homelessness or the starvingness or whatever is going on, the hunger locally here. So now we're going to clamp down a little bit on what you guys are giving away here to make sure that you're giving away safe food. But the problem sometimes is so big that the solutions that we have to use maybe are not the perfect solutions, and they're not perfect. Maybe they're perfect in the sense that it's the best solution that's available, but they're not perfect in the sense that, yeah, they could introduce a little bit of risk. It's like vaccinations for a lot of diseases. Introduce a little tiny bit of risk. I mean, you're putting stuff into your system, okay, and things can happen. But is it worth? Should we just stop doing anything because we're afraid of introducing a little bit of risk on one side when we can do so much good on the other. And part of it is, it's a mindset. It's what it was with the lawsuits and liability. People are oh my God, I can't do anything that increases my liability on anything. And the fact that their liability associated with the increased homelessness, they don't worry about that one. I mean, there's a huge liability when you have a large, homeless, hungry population in your city. Those people have to be they should be taken care of. They're humans. They need to be taken care of. So they pose a lot of risks and a lot of costs, like medical costs. They go to the emergency room. They have to be hospitalized. They're very expensive to deal with. It's a lot cheaper if we gave them some food, gave them a little warmth.
Here's a question. What if they weren't giving it to the homeless? What if they were giving it to the elderly? Are we going to have the same problem? I almost tend to think not. You know what I mean? Because I like I said, I've been in Florida. I followed Florida for a while, and it does seem that there is a judgmental stance on homeless in Florida. And it's not just Florida. Don't get me wrong, but I just don't see a newspaper writing an article saying that this pastor is being arrested for feeding the elderly. I don't see it. Because I see Revolution, like you would not believe, saying that this is just so wrong. I mean, the people can't get out because these meals that he's giving out aren't just for the homeless. It is for the elderly. He does send it out to the elderly. Those who can't get to the church, or those who can't get to the food shelter, or whatever the case may be, they're homeless. They're either homeless or they're inside their home, and he brings some food. So, but you notice all the articles. None of the articles say him bringing food to the elderly. It's all about the homeless, and that seems to be the catalyst for the judgment. That the judgment argument is to where it was like, well, now we got to talk about liability, and no, let's talk about the real situation. Is it really liability, or is it that you don't want the homeless to have a free meal because you feel that they don't have to be homeless?
Yeah, I think also in America, because of I think we rate success on wealth, and poor people represent sort of like failures, and we have to punish people who fail because heaven forbid you should help a person up who's it's really weird because they make this argument like with taxes would be the kind of thing, but it's like we can't give poor people welfare or food or stuff because it just makes them lazy and makes them keeps them poor. But it's okay to give tax cuts to the rich because by letting them keep more of their money, they'll actually work harder because you're giving them more money. Where poor people, if you give them money, they won't work harder. So it's like, wait, but that doesn't even. And I think part of it comes down to, and you were hitting on it, tourism in Florida. I mean, Florida, tourism and tourists don't pay a lot of money to come to Florida and look at homeless people. Especially scruffy homeless people who are stealing. It's like, but I don't think people would mind if the homeless people were taken care of. But that's this weird perception. But and even if that's, who cares about the tourist thing? What about dealing with humans? The whole system has to be rethought from the ground up. It is kind of what it comes down to. Is we have these laws in place that make things. It's this logical insanity, which I like to talk about periodically, is where people are making little choices, little decisions, and each time they make a little decision, it makes a little bit of sense based on what it came from. Until you string them all together, and then you realize we have a crazy system, and then the whole thing has to be brought down and start over again. And a lot of it will get rebuilt, and a lot of it will come back exactly the way it was before. But if you can make some fundamental changes at the base, you can maybe take care of some of these big blanket issues. And that's really what I want to talk about next here. And then it was kind of leading up, everything I've set up today has been leading up to this last story that I really want to talk about, because it was really tied to local solutions for global issues. It's about rethinking things from the ground up. And this was a story coming out of Copenhagen, Denmark. And they have a problem with like we all do, global climate change. And a few years ago, they had a major storm there in the city, and it did $1 billion worth of damage. Because they build a lot of like dams. Denmark does that, maybe. Maybe it's Holland, but they're on the water up there, and as a lot of you are. But they run a lot of risks with storm weather, and they did a lot of damage to the city. And this is a before and after picture of town square down here. And one of them, but what they thought, we got to redo everything, because we had this big flood, and the water came in, flooded these buildings. It was flooding the streets. How are we going to deal with this? And the typical solution when you have problems like that in these cities is you improve your sewage system, which was going to be hugely expensive. And what they really decided to do instead was to just rethink the way we think of streets. And so basically they I don't know if you can tell from this picture here, but they got rid of sort of the wide streets and made them a little bit more narrow streets. They kind of built up, they created these little park-like things, lots more sidewalks. And what will end up happening is, in the event of a big storm, is the streets will fill up, but they'll be like canals, and then they're all directed to where all the canals water flows out of the city and back out into the sea. And so it might be flooded for a day or two, but they designed it so that the water comes out of the buildings, it ends up in the streets, with these walkways and stuff. It's a little bit better, there's better drainage there. They can do all this without put in the sewage, redoing the whole sewage system, which is hugely expensive, hugely inconvenient. And the question is it really solving a problem? Right. We're here, they're kind of adding a lot more nature to the environment. People are happier. There's a lot of good things, but it's like they rethought what it was to have streets in their city. And by sort of rethinking that from the ground up, they were able to solve these bigger problems. Bigger problem of global climate change. Their local solution is one that makes a lot of sense, and it's one that they were able to do, like I said, by rethinking. So it wasn't a matter of just putting another Band-Aid. Expand the sewage system again. Put in better drainage. Where it's the same old type of drainage that we did before, but just it's bigger. And there's like, no. And so they sort of quote here from one of the things. This was an opportunity for them. Climate change is a huge opportunity for greener cities. That's a great word there, opportunity. We've talked about that. But I think it's a crisis. Global climate change is a crisis. Well, it presents a challenge for sure, but they faced the problem and they thought it was an opportunity. It was an opportunity to start over, to rethink what it means. And that's the same problems we could address with the homeless. We could rethink, what does it mean for the community to take care of the homeless? Maybe it's more important to let people give them food than it is to arrest people for feeding them. That's that logical insanity. How did we get to a world where you get arrested for feeding homeless people instead of being praised for feeding homeless people? There's just something. And you can make arguments. Like I said, we alluded to some of them, and they have them. And in little increments, some of those arguments make sense. But what doesn't make sense is the logical insanity, the insanity at the end of the day. And that's when you have to say, okay, we got to really back it up. We got to build it up from the ground up. We got to rethink these systems. We're putting people in jail for 5 days because they can't pay a parking ticket, and then the impact that has on the average working person is unbelievable. I mean, some people in America maybe don't realize that. They could take 5 days off of work. They get arrested. They call their boss up. Yeah, put me down for 2 weeks vacation. I got to deal with this legal thing. Oh, no problem. And then it doesn't impact their lives at all. Where there's other people, you're living on the edge. I mean, if you're that 5 days in jail, you're not working, so you got no money that 5 days. Plus, you lose your job altogether. Now you got no money coming in, and then 2 weeks later, you can't pay your rent. And now you're being kicked out on the street. You're losing your kids. It's this huge snowball effect, and it's because we don't take care of our poor. We haven't got our systems in place to take care of the poor, and a lot of it stems from this privatizing criminal justice, which is don't get me started. But that was really kind of told an awkward story tonight, and spent a lot of time talking about some different things. But the arc I really wanted to hit on was that there are these global issues. There's problems with the system. whatever system it is, whether it's the government or the globe, how we deal with floods and things like that. But we need to think about local solutions. And when you're thinking about a local solution, you're free to think of any solution you want. Don't be bound by what everybody else is doing or what what traditionally is. You can think of your own unique local solutions. And if it's a great solution, then it's one that, through the ripple effect, can spread out, and other people can adopt that solution. I mean, that's the beauty of evolution. Is there's this mutation, and then there's this performance that has to happen. There's the mutation, and then you have to let it play out, and then eventually, if it plays out and does well, other people will adopt it. So it's a mutation, and then selection. The good ideas survive, and then finally, heritability, the best ideas are adopted. So it's performance, feedback, revision. It's do something, see what happens, and then change it up a little bit if you have to. It's actually learn, improve, and share. You think about your own problem, you come up with a solution, and you share your solutions. So it's all this evolution of ideas that's so important. And evolution of ideas also requires communication. So it requires translating ideas and thoughts from one person to another, and that's a big part of this. It's all connected. That's the theme of every night show that I do here. Is it's all connected. The universe is doing whatever the universe does, but it's not doing lots of different things. It's doing sort of one thing, and it looks very different. We get this very complex, diverse beauty of the universe, but there's some simplicity back there, and if we can trace the simplicity back and find out, for us, what does it mean? Maybe it's realizing that we're all humans. We're all connected. We all depend on each other, and we should be allowed to come up with our local solutions. And if they're good solutions, then we should be willing to spread those ideas and let the good ideas spread. Don't shut down ideas because they're somebody else's. Embrace other people's ideas if they work. And don't shut people down before they have them. Don't let we prevent people from pursuing solutions because we want everybody to do it the same way. We want this uniformity of action. We don't need uniformity of action. The world's a big place. We don't need uniformity action, especially when we have issues. We need individual solutions, unique solutions, and then some of them work well in one place, and that's great because it solves the problem there. Somebody else can solve the problem somewhere else. We can find these local solutions, and then maybe we can address these global issues. So that was really kind of what tonight had me thinking about, or today on this last day of January of 2015. What I've been thinking about is sort of these local solutions to these global issues, and then using the ripple effect to spread the word. Any closing thoughts, Shane?
Well, just to piggyback off of what it is that you were just saying, you notice the picture in regards to the climate control page there, the climate change page, and you notice the difference between the picture. You notice there's no cars around, right? And there's more walkways, and there's more. I dare say that they, to an extent, generalized what the solution would be, as opposed to focusing it in on one sector of that community, whether it be the business sector, whether it be the transportation, whatever. Because most cases, and it's the same thing for the homeless situation. The homeless situation, if you want to deconstruct that, bring it down to, guess what? It doesn't take much in order to be homeless. Miss two paychecks. Miss two paychecks. Okay? And tell me how well you're doing. Because the average person, there's always that upper tier of financial stability, but the majority, if they miss two paychecks, they're in trouble. And that, their mortgage is at risk. They're behind. They're always trying to catch up. If they're not working 2 or 3 jobs, they're in trouble. And it's not going to be long before they end up being homeless, especially a single person. So, and so going back to what you had just said, we are human first. Okay? So why don't you, instead of being judgmental, why don't you put yourself into that person's shoes? Because I got news for you. There are homeless people that are chemists. There are homeless people that are business owners. There are homeless people that are athletes, right? And it's not just because of the choices that they made as far as addiction or some. There definitely are those that are afflicted by their illnesses and so forth, and their decisions because of those illnesses. But there are those who aren't afflicted by those things that are still homeless, and and it's not because they want to be. That's another thing. Is it's like an assumption that, well, if you wanted to, you could get out of here. Well, you know what? That's not always the case. Sometimes you dig your hole deeper by digging faster. And so that those types of encouragements and everything like that, makes a person dig their hole faster. And so it's like bringing it down and deconstructing, like you were saying, bringing it down to the base of, let's start here. We are all the same. We're all human, and we all have needs. Okay, let's start from there. And go. Most people, most decisions that are made these days are made off of what's going to make us money, what's going to make us be sustained. We had this conversation, right? We had this conversation in regards to a business that we were thinking about. It's like, well, what's going to sustain us? And it's like, so we're guilty of it in some aspects, but at the same time, it's like we rely on our leaders to be able to say, I'm here for the people, and that's not just one percentage of that people. It's for all of them. So deconstruct and start from the beginning is, we're all the same, and we all have needs.
That's another week. That's week 4. It was we started counting with week 0 was the first week counted. 5th week, we have the weirdest numbering scheme in the world, but hey, that's all right. Keeps us on our toes. So that's 4.6. 5.0 will be tomorrow. Wrapping up with the Twitter update. 955 followers. I think it was one.
What was it?
It was 956 yesterday, I think. So
for a minute.
And then we're 8 yesterday, now listed on 87.
Oh.
So people have lists of tweet people. So I was taken off a list. So I must have. It could be anything. People dying. Who knows what's happening? I don't follow that closely. But follow us on Twitter. It's Random Access at Random Access on Twitter. You can tweet at us by using the RTWRE hashtag. It's the Random Thoughts with Random Access hashtag, and the tweets will come up. You can search that hashtag RTWRE, and you can kind of see what's being tweeted out, mostly by this one Blue Eye character. There's stuff that comes off our Facebook page that gets fed directly to Twitter, so you can follow what's happening on the Facebook page by following Twitter, or you can just actually visit the Facebook page. That's Random Thoughts with Random Access Facebook page. All the articles that I talked about tonight are linked in there. If you find those articles interesting, you want to read them, that's what you can do. The main message is that maybe not those articles in particular are the crux. I mean, I think I try to have a more general message in that just in life out there, you should be looking at things. Maybe I should be saying you should, but I like to, when I have an reaction to something, is ask that question. I wonder why I'm reacting that way. What's going on here? What is this saying about me? What is this saying about the way I think about the world, the way I look at the world? And am I comfortable with that? Should I maybe try to think about things differently? So that's this is a big exercise in dealing with that. And today, kind of telling the story, I'm a real big believer in this, finding local solutions to global issues. Because I think local sustainability for food, energy, water, education, very, very important. I think global communication is extremely important. So we shouldn't isolate ourselves communication-wise, but we should be willing to, and it's not really isolate ourselves, but we should be willing to arrange it so that we can live sustainably and locally. We don't need to be having to rely on giant grids to bring us resources. The grid that we need to worry about is the communication grid, so that we're all talking to each other and sharing ideas. but we need to be living locally, and then whatever solutions we come up with that make things better, we can spread those ideas. So ideas spread, but we don't have to be spreading resources. Trying to find the resources that work locally. So that was kind of, and that's a big theme and kind of how I want to think about the world. And is it really function? Is it really practical? Who knows? But someday it will be. I believe that it will be practical. Maybe we're just ahead of the curve right now, so we're going to get some pushback. Get us up on Twitter. You can hit us up on the Facebook feedback line, the Facebook the Random Thoughts feedback line. That's 15189-666-175. 3 to 5 on the weekends, 3 to 4 during the week, and every night 11 to midnight after the show. And we're out of here tonight, I think.
I'm ready to go.
Good night.
Good night,
Yay.
folks. Now we're celebrating because we're ready.
It's still recording. Stop recording. Stop recording.